All right. Thanks for joining us for Real Talk NFT. As you know, I'm your host, Brian, and I have my amazing co-host here, Joe. We have a really special guest here for you today, Tama Churchouse, who's the co-founder of Digitali. It's a free content encyclopedia. It's written and maintained by the NFT community, and we're really excited to have him on and learn all about it. Tama, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
So kind of jump right into it. I really want to hear about Cumberland Labs and Digitali, but just let's talk a little bit about like your current sentiment around like NFTs and the mainstream media, and would love to just hear what you have to say about NFTs overall.
Yeah, sure. I think for anyone who's relying on mainstream media as the basis of their opinion for anything, let alone NFTs, then my condolences. But if you are one of those unfortunate souls who relies on the Washington Post or New York Times for your opinion on NFTs, then yeah, you're going to find it's pretty grim. I mean, like, I've been in this space since 2012, 2016 full time. And yeah, like it's absolutely grim. I mean, this is this is a really, really grim market. If you're looking at the Atlantic headlines like remember NFTs, are NFTs really dead and buried? All signs point to yet. There was a piece in the Guardian the other day. What were NFTs? Past tense. An understandable internet fad, which I thought was incredibly condescending. And then Yahoo was a good one. Uptober in crypto, Floptober in NFTs. I mean, like it's absolutely it's absolutely dire. It's the depths of really the first NFT, like proper NFT bear market, right? This is the first one. I don't really count CryptoKitties, flash in the pan. I mean, this is it's grim. Yeah, that's just as straightforward as I could say it.
Are you a big NFT collector? You've been in the space since 2012, so I'm sure you've lived through your fair share of crypto bear markets, but collecting any NFTs or have your eyes on any projects?
CryptoKitties I dabbled around in. I own a few NFTs, but I don't typically, I don't I'm not a loud and proud NFT holder. I think most people probably aren't. I appreciate them as I've always kind of found them just to be a fascinating primitive, right? I feel like that there's just an incredible range of application and promise, which look so far is unfulfilled that promise, but we're getting there. But it's it's a grim market. But yeah, I mean, I own NFTs. I have no intention to be selling them at any time. Simple as that, really.
Wow. How did you get inspired for, the repository that you've created? Kind of started that initiative?
Well, I think one of the issues with NFTs is, and this is kind of particularly for newcomers coming into the space, right? It's really hard to genuinely understand the background, utility, functionality, and it's particularly kind of the legal and commercial ownership rights associated with an NFT collection, right? If you come in fresh, you're NFT curious, and you start Googling, right? Number one, you're going to find kind of crypto media, which is obviously very much subjective. It's either extremely bullish or extremely bearish. So your sources of information are not overwhelmingly reliable. They're very disparate. You've got to go trawling through Twitter or Discord to really kind of get the sense of what actually is this NFT? Like, what do I even own if I buy it? So our view was, look, we want to build something where it's just really a Web3 wiki for NFT collections. That's kind of step one, right? So if you're going to a page, whether it's Moonbirds or Pudgies or whatever it is, you have kind of an objective, fact-based resource of information that's completely referenced. It's transparent, it's clear. So you can get 80%, 90% of the story of a collection on a single page. I mean, it's not a groundbreaking idea by any means, But I don't think we're going to have a big, influx of people into the space in kind of, when it starts to take off, without some way for people to be able to actually have a look at where they're deploying cash. It doesn't exist at the moment. Wikipedia doesn't cover it. And so kind of that was really we couldn't find it. So we were like, okay, well, this is something we think we need. And I definitely know people who are, NFT curious, who want to come into the space. They're just going to give up because it's just too hard to even begin the do your own research, component.
So tell us a little bit about the project digitally. It's I know it's connected with Cumberland Labs. How's that connected? And tell us a little bit about the project.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll back up a little bit. So I'm COO of Cumberland Labs. So we're kind of an early stage blockchain incubator. We're global. Chicago, London, Singapore, and India. We're a team around 35, predominantly developers, engineers, but we have kind of a 360 team. We work very closely and are kind of backed by Cumberland, which is kind of really the largest liquidity provider, trading desk in the crypto space, and the parent DRW, which is a large proprietary trading shop. So, Cumberland Labs, we conceive of, build, and deploy ideas and products, right? I mean, that's kind of what we do. NFTs, this one was a little bit outside of what we typically do. Really, we typically tend to focus on a lot more kind of financial based products, trading based products, infrastructure. But this was just something that it emerged just as a fundamental need that we all had and saw in the market, and that was really kind of where kind of digital, how digitally it emerged. And so this is kind of really, we're just really coming in market now. We're really, we've done a bunch of Google ad testing in terms of, are people interested in this kind of content? And I can kind of share, some of the stats on that kind of stuff later. And it's quite interesting. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of where we're at now. And I guess, October really is just the month, which is, it's probably the worst month, to be doing anything in the NFTs. But we're in it for the long haul, and we think this resource needs to be here. So, that's where we're at.
Yeah, I had a question pop up today actually that pertains to gladly you coming on board, and with the emergence of AI and whatnot. A question that was brought up was how do we authenticate or know if NFT authorship? How can we prove that what was written is actually by a human? I'm not sure if you could just touch on that. I know you're not an AI expert, but it was just a question that I thought was intriguing.
Okay, well, so we'll end up this will unpack a box, because when I said this is this is V1. So V1 is really very much a Wikipedia type thing, right? So a contributor can simply literally put in their email address and any ETH public address they want. It's just we need something to be able to essentially ultimately airdrop something. They can open up the editor, add some content, a reference, and it gets submitted to our content review team, right? So naturally, everyone's going to go, oh, well, that's just completely subjective, and how do you know, what crosses the bar and what doesn't? What's hyperbole and what's not? So it can be very messy. But to begin with, we're like at the end of the day, the content, the quality, the references will speak for themselves. Now, we have used AI as well, because what we ultimately, and this is kind of a longer term roadmap, right? Which is when you look at information, large language models, where that space is going and the speed at which it's going. There's two observations we have, and we've got two guys who are kind of AI guys on the team out of New York. There's two things. Number one, we are well away from you being able to just simply go into ChatGPT and get the kind of objective data that you get from digitally. Like it's just, we're still a long, long way away from that. But ultimately, where we want to get to is, if you think of, I'm taking an example. Let's, imagine a Wikipedia page, or in this case, a digitally page, right, where you've got, and the presentation is very much similar. You've got, the story, the background, the founders, the launch, functionality. What is the actual IP ownership? Like, what are the, is it CCO? Do you actually have any of the IP? Do you have a license that could just be revoked at any time, right? That's a whole other separate question. And you think of that page as essentially a chain, and it's kind of a source of truth. It's a historical source of truth, which is referenced from a whole bunch of external, factors. Now, where we're thinking about going is, the AI agents that we've trained for each particular collection, right? They will scour a wide repository of information periodically. That will include, all of the social media specific to that collection, as well as quite, a pretty extensive list of, traditional NFT blog media. And what that agent will do is it will effectively periodically create a block, and that block will just be a block of text. It'll be, for example, on October XYZ, September XYZ, Pudgy Penguins announced the launch of sales of its toys in 2,000 Walmart stores, right? Whatever it is, it's an objective, bit of content with a reference. That block is sent by the AI agent to miners who are effectively verifiers, and it's just a pool of individuals who they receive a block, they read it. Very simple, yes for inclusion in the block, or no. And if it's no, just why, check mark why. It's objective. Is it, is something wrong with it? And that's it. So the block comes to you, you see yes, no. And if you have a pool of these miners, and they're effectively human validators, and it's very, very, very easy, right? And we're not expecting a massive volume of this. What you're doing is two things. Number one is you're training the AI ultimately to be more and more objective, more and more fact-based, reasoned, because at the end of the day, everything we're dealing with, there is an element of subjectivity, right? That just is, from the words you choose. So we're trying to apply a relatively blockchain native consensus protocol on the creation of, English words, right? And so, that block of text goes through a consensus threshold, and it gets validated, and it just gets added to the page, right? And so that becomes this kind of collective source of truth. Everything is on chain, everything is referenced, everything is ultimately on permanent storage, and the LLM is completely transparent. The mining and the consensus protocol is completely transparent. There are ways that you can ensure that it is a human who is doing the validation instead of an AI. So ultimately, and there's even a bigger vision to it. Like, is that how we could potentially create a much larger media organization? Right? Is that
right. Sure.
Because everyone is just sick and tired of the media we get at the moment. So that's a very long-winded question, but we. That is how we think about kind of the fusion of AI and blockchain as it pertains to the creation, curation, and constant updating of what we would call kind of encyclopedic truth on something. And it extends well beyond NFTs. It extends to really anything. So yeah, there's a long-winded answer. I apologize for that, but it's a lot to unpack.
Let's dive into the platform a little bit. Tell me about unique features about the platform and why you believe it's going to be the go-to spot for NFT information. Yeah,
so I think what we've tried to do is create. This is just content to begin with, right? This is just like I said, it's what we're looking to do is create just an easy way for you to have at least, two things. One is kind of comprehensive, objective information on a page, regardless of whatever collection it is. The second thing we're really kind of zeroing in and we really want to emphasize is, our belief is that, when it comes to NFTs, there is this massive misconception, not only in the NFT world and actually the broader crypto world, but certainly in kind of the non-crypto world of what it is you actually own when you own an NFT, right? It's just, it is phenomenally unclear on many of the collections what it is you own, right? Most of the time you don't own the IP. You have some kind of license. That license has all kinds of restrictions. It can be changed at any time. It can be revoked. And a lot of the time it's just not even written in, like, it hasn't been written by a lawyer. It's just kind of someone has just put a few, words of text on their, their collection homepage, and it's meaningless. That to me is a huge issue, right? Because, when you're dealing with, assets that, potentially worth, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, and in particular, when you're looking at kind of the next phase of, where we think at least NFTs will go, which is kind of far more kind of commercial, real world tie-ups, branding, and like real kind of brands. Those licenses will have the capacity to be worth quite a lot, right? And if you have a team, you can have just this very different thing where you have, a founding team, creative team who sits and owns the IP. You've got a vast community of people who really build the brand. They have, an NFT with some kind of license, and there's some hope that the value of those NFTs will rise. But, a Disney comes in and says, okay, we want to buy the IP. The founding team could be like, yeah, great, fantastic. Disney buy it. Disney would do anything with the license that, the NFT guys, the people, the holders of the NFTs have. It's not automatically it's going to be, it'll go up in value. Yeah, maybe it will, maybe it won't. But, I would love to see a much tighter link between, the the IP and the kind of the holders of the NFTs. It is a complicated issue, and I would love to see NFTs as securities. I think the best NFTs will actually be securities. Like that means profit share, royalties, dividends, right? Like I would love to see us in a position where, if you are helping build a brand from the ground up, that you have actual ownership in it, right? Like, and not kind of crypto ownership, but actual, security-like ownership. So, that, section that we're really working on building, which is kind of what is the ownership rights associated with this NFT. That's a kind of a big one, and that's a big differentiator because it's just very difficult for anyone to compare one versus the other. So that's, certainly I think something that we want to keep building out, across the collections. And we obviously have people contributing content. It's obviously a very mixed bag. But as a startup, the first thing we want to see is like, look, is there some kind of product market fit for what we're providing, right? Is this actually, and the metrics we get in terms of kind of people coming in through the site, the click-through rates on, some of the Google ads we run, are really impressive. I mean, I can kind of share some of that with you, but anyway, I'll leave it there.
Yeah, that's a good lead into the question I was gonna ask anyways. You being out for a little bit now, has your vision changed due to community feedback and what the feedback has been, and any difference in views in that? So yeah, that's a good segue there.
Yeah. So when we first put it out, we actually had if you wanted to contribute content, you had to connect with MetaMask. And again, you are not actually, you're not making any kind of on-chain transaction, but you are just making a signature, right?
Yep.
That already is too high a bar. Like, it's just, nobody wants it. Like, even people who would, connect MetaMask, it's so clunky, it's slow, it's just so much friction. And some people are like, listen, you don't need this yet. Like, when you get to, at least the early people we talk to, and explaining some of the vision in terms of what I was talking about earlier with the AI blocks, the validators, etc. When you get to that point, yes, absolutely. But at this point, really, it's just about removing as much friction as possible and allowing people to, add content very, very easily, without having, just removing friction. Like, that was really the first thing. So we, just recently said, okay, look, got to put, let's get rid of the connect with MetaMask because it's too much friction. Let's make it easier. That was number one. The second bit of feedback was this massive demand for, like, again, what we talked about earlier in terms of like the real legal ownership rights, the licenses associated with each NFT collection. And that's complicated because, like, some collections are fantastic at really providing, both in legal speak and plain English, what you actually own. Azuki is a good, example of that. Others have literally nothing, or they have words that actually don't mean anything. They're not actually like, we've got our own in-house counsel who read that and go, well, look, that's just garbage. It's not even. It looks legal, but it doesn't mean anything. And so, kind of getting to the bottom of that is definitely one of the bigger bits of feedback we've got. But yeah, those are really the main two.
So with the platform being open source and anybody in the community can contribute, tell me a little bit about how you prevent like inaccurate information. I know, like, it feels like it's like a Wikipedia for NFTs, and I know Wikipedia has thousands, millions of people kind of fact checking at all times. How do you handle that?
Yeah, so we're far from the scale of Wikipedia, which is, again, a good thing. So at this stage, and again, it's a pretty classic rule. We're doing things that don't really scale, right? So this is all manual. So, when something comes in, it goes through, kind of a multi-step process, right? Number one, like, is this just spam, or like, is this even a, real content? Like, does it come with a reference, right? Is that reference kind of a valid link? Is it because Google actually will not let you put certain URLs on your page. It'll flag, right? So certain associated scam websites, right? So okay, got to check that. Is the content objective? So we run it through kind of just really the primary thing is the AI measure, which says, okay, is this, and we do it, you can eyeball it as well. It's like, is this hyperbole, exaggeration, unnecessary words? Is it hypey, scammy? Is it FUD? Or is it just a simple statement with a solid reference? And it goes through three people, and all independently. So they kind of triangulate. And if they have that kind of consensus, then it goes kind of to the next stage, which is kind of gets to the guy who sits behind me. Usually, if he has any questions, he'll come to me or the head of Cumberland Labs, and then we'll go. And it sounds a lot, but it's actually a relatively straightforward process because people either take it seriously or they don't, right? People either actually are genuine in their intent or they're not. And you can tell them very, very quickly. So that's not a particularly difficult thing at the moment. But that's kind of how it works. And then, we don't have a token yet. Ultimately, we want to, but we're still, one of the biggest criticisms I've always had in the crypto space is people just launching a token straight out the gate without much thought, and that's certainly not something we want to do. So we are just at this stage just allocating reward points, and basically that's reward points are just calculated look, if you submit 100 words and 80 of them end up on the page, you have a quality score, which is 80 divided by 100, that's 0.8. And then the reward points is just 80 words approved times the quality score, which will give you 60 something. So the incentive is obviously to provide content, but to provide accurate content, right? So those two metrics are really good. And that's hopefully how we're going to find the ultimate miners and validators for kind of the much longer term vision for what we have. But this is kind of, again, we're really day zero at the moment.
Yeah, I really like the layout of Digitali. To your point, many people don't even know what to ask, right? It's like a big shift for them. And seeing that information laid out simplistically here in terms of functionality, and to your point, legality is one of them that's not on here yet, is, people asking, they don't know what they don't know. And coming here, I think a lot of people will feel a little bit safer having the information kind of vetted in some way, and seeing that at an essential repository. So just kudos to that, because to your point, I haven't seen that yet in the market.
Yeah, like it's not sexy. I'll give you that. This is not like, at least now, it's not. I think like with the longer term vision is a fusion of AI and crypto to create objective information. I think that's definitely something that in the longer term, which is super interesting. But for now, and it was interesting. I was on a call with the founder of kind of probably a top 10, top 15 project last week. And the point I was making to him, and I did a screen share, and I said, okay, I'll give you an example. So pull up Google the name of his project, hit on news, and I just walk through. I'm like, so this is the content being provided for your collection. And it was 95% opinionated negative. And I said, look, there are reasons for that. Let's be honest. And I said, there are reasons for that. And I pulled up, the Digitali page. I said, look, the negative stuff they're talking about, it's here. You can see it. But you see how it's in the context of just a much broader, objective story. That's actually what news used to be, right? That's it was context, nuance, objectivity. I'm like, this is what we're doing. It was quite funny just to kind of be able to show him this is precisely the antidote to what we're doing, because anyone who comes into the space today and Googles you, they ain't going to touch you. They're going to get that first impression, and that's it. And so, yeah, like I said, it's not particularly sexy, but I think it's necessary.
Definitely necessary. I mean, I'm in San Francisco, and there's a lot of subjective authors here. You can tell by just the tone of the article.
Yeah.
And to your point, it's not even NFT, and it's all negative in San Francisco. But I was born and raised here, and a lot of things that they're pointing to is not true. And to your point, that's kind of how news runs today. Whatever bleeds leads, right? It's not really objective. It's more, attention grab, because people attention spans are 3 seconds nowadays with Reels and TikTok and whatnot. So yeah, absolutely. Just echoing your statement there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one thing I would say is, if it bleeds, it leads. And I completely agree with that. But I also agree with the fact that, look, most NFT collections are going to go to zero and be worthless, right? And if you've been in this space long enough, you know that that's what happens, right? If you look at the 2017 ICO boom, right, by 2019, most of them have gone to zero. And what do you expect? Because the marginal cost of producing either a new protocol, when everything's open source, you just copy paste, or to release an NFT collection, is practically zero. I mean, there's no it's a digital. It's just some keystrokes really to create a collection, right? So the marginal cost of production is practically zero. You had a frenzy of trading demand and money came in, and the market responds how it responds, by dumping in supply. Right? It didn't necessarily dump in quality. It just dumped in supply. Right? That's what happened. So when you see all these articles saying, 90% of NFTs are worthless, 95% of NFTs are worthless, I'm like, yeah, because they didn't cost anything. They were worthless to begin with. But that again, that misses the broader point. And it's the same cycle that happens again and again in crypto, right? You get massive booms, massive busts, and when you've got a zero marginal cost of production of an asset, a lot of it's worthless. I mean, like, yeah, that's just, that's what happens. But it's what emerges from it, right? And there are things emerging from it. And that's like people who are actually a little bit open-minded, a little bit intellectually curious, you will find there's some really interesting stuff happening in the space. So yeah, that would, I'll get off my soapbox. But
No, well said. I mean, it's interesting because there's more and more projects coming every day. And it's almost like, since there's no gatekeepers, like the art world, galleries were almost the gatekeeper if they were going to allow you in to show your work. But with NFTs now, it's anybody could really make anything they want and they could release it on the market. So the overall market is the gatekeeper. What do we find valuable, what we don't find valuable, and what we like. And so that's a really interesting statement. Just going back to the platform, what type of projects are you featuring on the platform? I guess styles.
Yeah,
Is it art, PFPs? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, to begin with, it's PFPs, right? That's kind of the first, because when we look at the market, that's, I think, what dominates most of the conversation, has dominated most of the conversation. Artists themselves will certainly come later, as will kind of more of the kind of commercial brands and tie-ups. You mentioned the auction houses as the gatekeepers. I mean, Christie's just brought Keith Haring to market, his first digital art. Sotheby's have just done some tie-up with Ledger. So for high-end digital art, they'll give you a kind of a branded lender. Now, like, there's still actually, the space is still progressing, like, so much more than people really think, right? The reality is that the mainstream, like I said, they see Ashton Kutcher as, settled, right? Steph Curry, he's taken down his ape, from Twitter, right? It's back to a normal photo. What's to say? Jimmy Fallon, he ain't shilling anything on late night TV anymore, right? That's fine. But, if you look below the hood, you see, Doodles and Crocs did a collaboration. VeeFriends and Reeboks did a collaboration recently. Harry Styles did something with NFT ticketing and fan experiences as well. Bieber was trying to launch, put one of his songs into an NFT, which will basically pay royalties. Pudgies we've mentioned. PayPal have filed an application for an NFT trading and transfer. Yeah. Right. So there's a lot going on, but again, people have already kind of made up their mind. They're generalized, and it's the same, and that's the opportunity, right? So again, I'll get off my soapbox again.
No, where you are over in the eastern part of the world, I've seen a ton of movement, big brands, big gaming publishers, just 3 in the last week that I've seen make mainstream statements. They're not shying away from the term NFTs. PUBG, which is a crafting company, built their own blockchain to promote their NFT game called Over There. We know Zynga came in, and then we know Konami's coming in. Like, it doesn't seem like Asia is shying away, and they're kind of really making a push to integrate this, breakthrough technology. So, is that why you're over there in Singapore? Are things moving a lot faster?
I do. I mean, the energy is massive. And you mentioned the gaming space. Yeah, we haven't even touched on that. I mean, I spent probably about 2 years in my former job in venture capital, and I really focused on gaming. Blockchain gaming, and this was back in 2018-19. And like everything in crypto, it's taken forever to kind of to really get to the mainstream. I thought it would be faster, but I've got some just brutal misses. Like every VC, right? You always you remember the ones that you missed, right? And I've still got the no thanks, I don't want to invest that I sent to Nicholas Julia at So Rare when he was raising at a $7 million valuation. Same with Sandbox at 20 million. I'm like, oh. So, I spent a lot of time in that space. I spent a lot of time in the gaming space, and I think, and there's a ex rockstar guy who has just done something as well. Like, it was that the Zynga thing. But yeah, I mean, like, that's a space ripe as well, and it falls under NFTs, but everyone tries to kind of bunch them into kind of one single thing, which they're not.
Yeah, I guess my last question for you today is just overall, how's Digitali plan to stay relevant as the NFT market continues to evolve?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, this is the problem with building in a bear market, right? Everyone always says, you hear a lot, best time to build in a bear market. And that's typically from VCs, A, because they get to invest cheap, and B, is it's a lot easier to get 100x's, out of a bear market than a bull market, right? Building a bear market is hard, and a lot of the excess of Digitali will is there demand? Is there going to be a demand for people who actually want this kind of information, right? Because we track search volumes, right? I mean, so the search volumes of anything related to NFTs have just collapsed, right? So if we use that as a analog for kind of overall demand, right? People are not searching for NFTs, right? There's people aren't searching for Bored Apes or whatever. They're just not. But what we find quite interesting is that, so we've, for each collection page, we've done some kind of Google ads, right? So, if you search for, depending on where you are, if you search for a collection, we'll do a sponsored ad and say, Web3 Wiki or encyclopedia for this particular collection. And, depending on how much you guys know about, click-through rates and Google ads and whatnot, like, on average, the click-through rates we get are double-digit, right? So, and up to 25, 30% for some of the collections, right? Which is huge, right? So, so that's saying like 30% of the people who see the ad in this, Google search, click on it, which is super high. And then coupled with that, we look at things like obviously bounce rate, time on site, page views, and we see them coming up, like just steadily coming up. But the core fundamental of that relevance, i.e., it's our, is what we are providing, is it relevant for this? Is it relevant for this person who is searching for information? And that relevance score, by all accounts of what I'm seeing on our Google dashboards, is yes. The problem is the volume of search is so low because we are in a bear market, and that's why this is kind of a long-term thing, right? We can't do anything about volume. We still think the fundamental belief is NFTs are still a transformative primitive. They really are. They're not going away. They're not dead. Like you can't kill them. And it's ironic because usually in these bear markets, you get Bitcoin is dead. You look at the Bitcoin obituaries, you get Bitcoin is dead. Like this time, there's actually no Bitcoin is dead. There's not even an Ethereum is dead. But it's like, they need kind of a fresh core, to poke at, and NFTs are perfect, right? So, NFTs are dead. Long live NFTs.
You gotta love those headlines. Rolling Stone started it hot just a few weeks ago or a week ago, eh?
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it. It's, it's been in this space long enough. Like you have to laugh at it and just head down and just keep plugging away.
I mean, you've been in since 2012. I mean, you've lived through multiple crypto, Bitcoins are dead headlines. And I did a webinar recently and I pulled some articles that claim that just older articles, the radio's dead, television's not going to make it, airplanes are a fad. So it's funny kind of what the mainstream media, I was almost surprised some of the articles I found. So I was like, I guess these NFTs are dead. Headlines aren't as scary as when it first was released. When you read some of those older archives,
like I said, the reality is a lot of NFT collections are dead. That's fine, but that's not the same thing. And conflating the two is the biggest misconception that everyone makes. They are two distinct things. So, but and it takes time for that to turn around. And it will, but it's going to be driven by proper commercially minded projects who set a new bar that the next kind of wave of entrants need to cross to even have any kind of hope of competing. So, and that's what, there's a handful of projects out there now. They're setting a new bar. That's a new minimum threshold for this market. There was no minimum threshold for the last bull market. There is going to be for the next one. And it's better for everyone. So, that's the way to look at it.
So kind of wrap it up. What's the best way for our audience to, get more information about the platform and just, yourself in particular?
Just you don't want anything about me, that's for sure. So no,
I give you a layup there. That was a lob ball. That was to pitch yourself a little bit.
I know, but I'm kind of British boarding school educated. We don't have the kind of the enthusiastic confidence, self-confidence that the Americans have. But no, for digitally, we're digitally for all. On Twitter, you can be one of the 8 people who follow us. Or I'm at Tama Churchouse on Twitter as well, and obviously digitally.xyz is a website. But look, we're always beyond that as well. Like, we're an incubator, right? So we work with super early stage smart founders who have great ideas. We've got a full team here to help build. And that's kind of what we do. So, we don't work with money. We're hugely selective. We're not a spray and pray incubator. We take, a small number of very high conviction bets. And so, for the right founder, right founding teams who are super early on, and, want to buckle down, build something with us, and with Cumberland and DRW, then, hit me up, Cumberland Labs. You can find me.
Yeah. And we'll share all those links for everyone below so they can find you. Just, I don't know. It's exciting. It's like the Wikipedia of NFTs, and love to kind of see the open source style that you're building in, and just how you're making just information more accessible to people that desire to find it. So really appreciate you joining us today, Tama. It's and we'd love to have you back on as your platform grows and Cumberland Labs grows. I know you're going to be in the space. I mean, you've been here since 2012, so we know you're not going anywhere. So we would love to have you back on and just hear more about developments and educate our users.
No, look, guys, it's been a real pleasure, and it's been great. I listened to the last podcast actually with Inda, which was great. So I appreciate what you guys do. You guys put a great show together. It's really valuable. And, it's, at least gives, folks like me, and other builders in the space, some kind of way to, I guess, put our side forward against the kind of that mainstream narrative. So, appreciate what you guys do, and what you do is really valuable. So yeah, a big thank you. From my side.
We appreciate that. Thank you again for joining us.
All right. Thanks, guys. Take it easy.
Thank you.